Hi guys, so I'm going to read Danger Trail number 3. So this was published in December of 1950. So Danger Trail. King Faraday. I had come 15,000 miles and bypassed 6 corpses on the trail of the most dangerous man in the world. But when I finally tagged the infamous Colonel Nago in this grim game of death, I discovered that I had signed my own death warrant, and that the last thing I would hear would be thunder over Thailand. I was feeling good. I had nothing to do but sit at a sidewalk cafe on Lower Fifth Avenue and watch New Yorkers hurry by. All I'm going to do from now on is plenty of nothing. Hey, beautiful, aren't you listening? Tune in on my wavelength.
Oh, King.
I didn't expect this warmer reception. But she felt as cold as ice, and then I saw what caused her blood to freeze. Something was hurtling through space from the hotel opposite. Something that had no business in an element that belongs strictly to the birds. By the time I got to him there was nothing I or anyone else could have done for the mute sprawled figure on the sidewalk. He didn't have a chance, falling from a window that high. There'll be nothing left for the ambulance in turn A to do, except mark him DOA. Yes, this stranger would be noted as dead on arrival, and there seemed no doubt of the manner of his death, until I pried something out of his clenched fist. When the police arrived, I gave them the toy elephant, answered a few questions, and returned to my downcast doll. Wonder why a man would take a good luck charm with him on a bad luck trip like that.
King, if you can't think of anything else, take me home, please.
I tried to soothe her by taking her to a very romantic spot overlooking the Hudson River.
What are you thinking about, King?
Oh, the toy elephant.
King Faraday, if you prefer thinking about murder instead of moonlight, goodbye.
Murder? Who said anything about murder? It was suicide. Or an accident. Or was it? I would have apologized to the dreamboat with a couple of orchids if I hadn't found myself 2,000 miles south and 20,000 feet high the next day. What's the big secret, Ed? Counterintelligence need a clay pigeon again? Just taking you for a ride to see some fireworks. In gratitude for services rendered, King. That's all. The fireworks took place in the loneliest spot on the Great Salt Desert that next day. I started breathing again when the sun didn't fall into our laps after that explosion.
If you think that one was terrific, King, you should have seen the one that got away.
What's the story, Ed?
We perfected this bomb from blueprints we captured in the Nazi Strategic Weapons Research Building at the end of the war. Everything was present and accounted for. Plans of the latest weapons the Nazis were experimenting with. Except the contents of one steel file marked Top Secret, and the whereabouts of ruthless Colonel Nago, head of the Strategic Weapons Research Division, dealers in death and destruction, wholesale. That's the story, King. Somewhere in this world at this very moment is Colonel Nago, with a hatful of plans, potentially dangerous enough to make the free people of the world goose-step at the crook of his little finger. Haven't your boys got a line on Colonel Nago since the end of the war, Ed? We heard from one of our men who was following a lead on the colonel yesterday. He was found in New York on the sidewalk with this in his hand. Yes, King. We know you found Lieutenant Matt Taylor's body. That's why we brought you here. We thought since you already saw what's happening, you'd be interested in the rest of it.
I'm interested. And so the next day found me in Lisbon. After another cloud hop, I made my way to contact Walt Smith, the second of 3 counterintelligence men working on the Colonel Nego case. But I never did get the information, for Walt Smith had already been contacted by the time I reached his room.
Boy, man, it was an accident. A leaky gas fixture. It happened just a few minutes ago. We did the best we could, but we were too late, senor.
It could have been an accident. Accidents happen all the time, but they're not accompanied by a figure of a toy elephant in the victim's fist. I wired Ed what had happened, and took off for the third and last man, who was searching for Colonel Nego. His name was Phil Peters, and his present address, Bombay. I warned Peters that there were sharpshooters around. Hope he got my message. I hurried to Peters' address. If you call a snail's pace through crowded Bombay streets, filled with Afghans, Sikhs, Tibetans, Sinhalese, and Arabs, hurrying. This reminds me of Times Square on New Year's Eve.
Alms, Sahib. Alms for the unfortunate.
Phil Peters was in his studio when I finally reached him. Peters, I'm certainly glad to see you still breathing after what happened to the others. But Peters didn't return my handshake. Peters? Peters! Evidently, my warning hadn't done Peters any good. Like the others, he'd received the same little gift. Suddenly, I glimpsed a shadow across the floor. It could come from only one place, the skylight overhead. I knew it couldn't be the chimney sweeper. I must have arrived here sooner than Peters. Visitors expected. On the target range, there was always a discussion on whether it was harder to shoot straight down or straight up at a target. The downs said, in shooting down, you tended to overshoot. The ups voted for undershooting as the handicap for shooting up. Looks like the downs have it. Before I could examine the late arrival, I heard the patter of running feet on the roof. The killer on the floor will wait till I get back, but the one running away can still talk, and maybe shed some light on these murders. As I stepped onto the roof, the scorching Bombay sun, intensified by the white roofs, bounced at me like a medicine ball filled with wet sand.
Can hardly see.
The nape of my neck is especially sensitive from frequent introductions to its ceaseless host, death. That's why I rolled with a blow when it came from behind. It's pretty hard to stop a trigger finger from crooking, but you can grab a knife hand by the wrist and hold it off.
Schweinhund!
Schweinhund. You got a pretty cute Nazi accent for a native. He was tough and strong. He'd need me. I grabbed him and threw my weight down, and we wrestled and rolled toward the edge of the roof.
My knife will end your meddling.
Save your breath for a little questioning later, chum. Whatever breath I had was knocked out of me as we fell through the skylight of the next roof and into an apartment.
Oh!
My breath returned, but the killers had gone forever. The fall had pinned his arm under him and driven his own knife into his back. Sorry we didn't stop to knock.
What happened? I was about to take an indoor shot when you fell in.
I told Vilma Hobart that was the doll's name as much as I could, without actually telling her anything. Later, I did an encore for the Bombay police. The bodies contained no identification, but on each killer's palm was a tiny tattoo of a by now familiar figure. No sooner had the bodies been removed than those toy elephants again. Hey, honey bun, aren't you afraid I'll crack your lens?
Not with your face, handsome. Besides, I'm a pretty good photographer. Wait till you see yourself in the story I'm going to do about you in the picture news.
Psst. The last thing in the world I wanted was publicity. I had to throw this beautiful shutterbug off the scent, so I put my arms around her and, honey, maybe you don't know it, but you saved my life. As soon as I saw your face as I fell through the skylight, I said to myself, King, my boy, this is a very bad time to stop living.
Why, King, how sweet. Oh, King, you pressed my hand against the shutter release before I had a chance to turn the roll. Now I have 2 pictures of the same film. A double exposure. Your shot's ruined. I'll have to take another.
It can wait.
Oh, you...
yeah. I had to keep Vilma's mind off the story, so I took her out to lunch. We had Bombay duck, which isn't duck at all, but salted fish. Honey, I'd like to buy you a diamond necklace. Where's the biggest 5 and dime store in town?
There's a wonderful toy store in the street of the 7 Moons, King. Sink's. It's famous throughout the Orient.
Sink's window was jammed full of toys of every description. Vilma was in raptures, like a kid having Christmas in July. Suddenly, something caught my eye. While Vilma was trying to decide between a diamond necklace, a jade ring, and a pearl brooch, all worth about $1, I spoke to the proprietor. I'd, like a toy elephant, Sink, like the one in the window.
A universe of regrets, Honorable Sahib. That is but a window display. Sink had as a customer who has a standing order for all the toy elephants. Sink Fashions.
I tried to be as casual as I could, as I asked Sink the $64 question. I have a friend who collects toy elephants. His name is Smith, John Smith. Lives in Singapore.
I do not know him, Sahib, but my customer's name is William Winters. I am sending a shipment of the little elephants to him this very day on the Trans-East night plane.
Thanks for the diamond necklace, King. And please be on time for our date tonight. Don't forget, I gotta interview you for my picture story of you.
Huh? Oh, yeah. But the only date I kept that evening was with the Trans-East night plane flying a shipment of toy elephants to one William Winters, address as yet unknown. As the big DC-4 headed east from Bombay, flew over Pune and Canada, chased its shadow over the Bay of Bengal, and skirted Rangoon. I wondered whether I would be the next to receive a toy elephant. No sooner had we passed over Mole Mine in Thailand when the heavily veiled woman who had been sitting silently in the seat behind me during the entire trip tapped me on the shoulder and, Vilma!
From the absent-minded way you kissed me after leaving Sink's, I knew you weren't going to keep our date. So I did. I'm a reporter, remember? And something tells me you're a bigger story than I thought.
I left Vilma, still smiling, and went forward to chat with the pilot. William Winters is an old friend of mine. I haven't seen him for years. I'm paying him a surprise visit. Sinks told me he's sending him a package. The package and I will arrive together.
That is impossible, Mynheer. Mynheer Winters lives deep in the Thailand jungle. He never leaves it. Packages for him are always dropped over a clearing south of Raihing. In fact, the one from Sinks is being dropped now.
I hurried back to the baggage compartment, talked the native porter into selling me one of the spare chutes, and took off after the package, which by this time was out of sight. There's Mount Khao Lan. Mr. Winters certainly picked out the densest jungle in Thailand to live in. My chute got caught on a branch of a tree on the way down. As I hung there, someone obligingly tried to cut me down. I refused the offer of assistance as quickly as I could.
Shrine!
Funny how that Nazi accent keeps cropping out in the most unexpected places. I was getting warm, all right. The character who had tried to kill me had an elephant tattooed on his palm. But I got warmer still when I realized I was not alone.
I always warned Johann he was too slow.
Mr. Winters, I presume? Or should I say, Colonel Nego?
I like your sense of humor. Johann didn't have any. Now he doesn't need any. He deserved to die. He was weak. I would have liquidated him anyway. Only the strong deserve to live.
At Colonel Nego's command, I started down a nearby path in the jungle. Despite the rifle at my back, I froze in sheer horror. This was a place where people lived?
It was, before I decided to test a fragment of my new weapon against it. You can imagine what effect an entire bomb, composed of the new element I perfected, would have against a city, a state, perhaps a continent. I shall not make the same mistake Hitler did. He, like all other military men, thought of weapons only in terms of destruction. But my weapons are devised to terrify. Who would dare stand against me if he had but one example of what my horror weapons can do?
I choked back the panic I felt and forced my numb legs to move away from that place of death and answer to Colonel Nego's command. And then,
there you see the symbol of my new world, this elephant who crushes resistance beneath its mighty feet. And inside that 1,000-year-old temple is my factory of horror. You do not joke any longer? You have lost your sense of humor? No matter. Now you lose your life.
just before Colonel Nego fired, I sprinted away from him and weaved straight toward the armed guards. That didn't stop the madman. He continued firing even though he was hitting his own men.
Colonel Nego, stop! You'll blow up the factory! Shoot him! It's our only chance!
While the terrified guards and the mad colonel became embroiled in a personal duel, I picked up a grenade from one of the fallen guards, and reasoning that if a rifle bullet could do a lot of damage to the arsenal inside the temple, a grenade could do still more. In the few moments before the grenade went off, I decided that the safest place for me was the waterfall. And then it seemed as if the world had come to an end. I must have been unconscious for hours. When I came to, I was lying on the bank of a river. and it was night. Slowly I made my way back to see what had happened. There was nothing left. Nothing. Except what might have been Colonel Nago pinned under what was left of the symbol he had chosen to terrify the world. When I finally made my way out of the jungle, I was greeted by a reception committee of one.
If you'd been a week later, I think I would have broken our date, King.
And the end. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, that'd be appreciated. If you have any requests you want me to do, just let me know in the comments, and I'll tell you when I can do the request. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys later.